The following content has been provided by New St. Andrews College in Moscow, Idaho. For more information, visit us online at nsa.edu.
Hear the world calling, but son, don't you listen. They're only trying to drag you back into prison. That's right.
Oh my goodness, welcome back to What Have You, live at the Acropolis. We already got tickled before we even started.
What happened is we've basically been podcasting in the car for a while, but without turning on the button.
Without an audience.
Well, we just started chatting,
Yeah.
and then we were like, oh, we got to turn this thing on. Like, we've got to have a plan.
I told Becca that I told my children tonight about how when I was a child, the playgrounds were more dangerous. It was like they were made of wood and tires and metal slides.
Oh, yeah.
And I said,
Oh,
woe
yeah.
to the person who is wearing a slippery pant.
And then I was remembering there was some park when we were kids where
So water tower
the
park.
slide, and it didn't scoop
There was no
out
release.
at the end.
There was no release from sliding.
It just drove you straight into the ground.
In a puddle, probably. It was like, and it was wide. It was like an extra wide piece of sheet metal that just shot down and crashed. And if you, and then sometime around then.
You went in like a pile driving kind of
but it was when, like, the track suits were in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
the wiffly pantsuit. And there's nothing that could keep you on that slide. You just
Oh, my
go
word.
whizzing off of it into the distance.
No, not into the distance, into the ground.
Into the puddle and the bark chips.
Oh, man. That's really
yeah,
funny.
that was a good time.
Oh, but here's what we need to talk about.
Oh, you had a topic on hand.
No, we just have to have a moment of public confession.
Oh, no.
Yeah. we
Okay,
do.
public, sure. Do it.
Here it is, guys. I can't, for the life of me, post these episodes on Facebook.
And you got to acknowledge that this was your designated task.
I know. Rachel's better at answering messages.
Well, let's assume I am, because I answer them when I see
I
them.
answer them.
That was our division of labor.
It kind of just shook out that way. I don't think we ever assigned duties.
Yeah.
But I think the last time I managed to get an episode onto the Facebook page, it was like September 14th, I think.
Yeah. Well, we got to catch up.
Well,
The
every week,
you want to
I
know
try
what the
to-
real download is that we can't remember what we talked about. So she texts me and says, help, I need a summary of the episode. And we both just pull a total blank.
We
about,
don't know. We don't know.
Did
what
we
said.
talk? I don't know.
And then we try to I should have a cute. Oh, Rachel, do you hear the clicking? I have a creme brulee torch in my car.
This creme brulee torch has been in here for a while. I just want to
she's
know if it had
playing with
butane in it.
No, it doesn't, and it's in the car because I brought it back because I thought it was yours, and it's not yours.
I have a different one.
Apparently it's mine, and
Yeah.
it's just stayed in the car. Anyway,
Yeah, confession's
saying?
over. The confession is over now.
no, we're gonna try.
Are you going to rededicate yourself?
Every week I rededicate myself, and I'm like, we're gonna get this. We're gonna
Shows-
put it on Facebook.
Shows you how
We're
profitable
gonna try.
rededications
Rachel
are.
even took a picture of my bad sweatshirt outfit.
podcast chic.
Yeah, and I had that. I could have posted it, but I didn't. It was a busy week. I couldn't remember to do it.
Things
I kept
happened.
thinking like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll get it. Oh, it's Saturday now. It's kind of late and weird to post it now. So
Next time.
next time,
Better
I'll do
luck
it.
next
Yeah.
time.
So anyway, there's like 64 episodes since the last time I put one up on Facebook.
Oh, well.
So.
Oh, well.
Oh, but you know what else though? Here's
What?
another little hot piece of news. They are moving us to our own
Oh, right. Podcast
Channel?
channel of some kind?
podcast channel. So if you are subscribed to this
It's
on
hard
like
to know if they're trying to help us or get rid of us.
no, what they're trying to do is be kind to the subscribers because you
right.
get like if you want this, you then also end up getting like Disputatio lectures and
Oh, right. Okay.
stuff like that. So they're going to put us on our own channel. However, they will have us in both places. So if you like it on the old way, you can keep on doing that for a little while because they're going to be posting in both places.
But then it's going to quit.
Eventually it will quit
Yeah,
and you'll
okay.
have to like resubscribe on the other
You have
channel.
to find a new way.
But there will be all the old episodes and everything will still be there.
Okay.
That's all.
That
That's
order of
our
business
housekeeping. And just I'll give you 3 guesses whether I'm going to handle that or someone else will.
Well, it won't be me. We're going to have to bring in another party
No.
to do something.
The people who load this up for us, the good people of New St. Andrews, they're going to handle it.
So, I was going to say, there is something that I thought we should talk about, but do we have anything we need to do before we move on to that?
What have you been doing?
All right.
What have you been doing? What have you?
What have I? Nothing as exciting as what had you.
Oh my gosh.
Becca finished the big quest of the many-person dinner.
Finished is an optimistic way of putting it, because now everything is at my house. It has to all be washed, because did I mention last week I was doing this dinner for about 200 people, formal dinner in a building that has no kitchen, which tells you that in order to wash the dishes, you have to load 9 million dishes into your car and drive them all home and wash them there, and then truck them back somewhere else. So currently I have all of it in my house. Like
everyone's
all of
favorite
it,
stage.
all over, everywhere, on my porch, in my kitchen.
This was a phase that
But let me tell you, the next thing though is I'm having like 30 people to dinner tomorrow night, and I have this happening in my house
tomorrow.
No, this is a different dinner. I'm doing like 30 tomorrow and 40 on Tuesday. So I've got like back
What
to
is
back.
it for?
Oh, this is a different, like, it's a class that Ben is teaching, and he's gonna be out of town. So he has invited them all to come for dinner, which is great. It's fun, and I was very.
Well, he's gone.
No, before he leaves. He would be gone for the
Oh,
class.
I was like, that seems like a very odd move. I'm gonna be out of town, so why don't
So
the
go
40
visit
of you
my
go
wife.
to my wife's house for dinner? And 2 nights in a row, because I'm gonna be gone for 2 nights.
No, he's gonna do the lecture.
Woo,
actually,
doggy. At
we're
dinner.
gonna do dinner and a lecture, because he'd be gone the day that ordinarily they would have
Right.
the lecture. So
That
we're
makes-
just gonna do it at the house,
Oh,
which is
good.
great. And and he,
How many people are you having?
it's-
30
I
and then
think
40?
I think it's 30.
What are you gonna make?
It might be 25 to 30. Well, and then the next night is soup night, which everybody loves. We like doing that one. But that one we also have to celebrate Judah's birthday at it, because
It's his birthday.
well, the next day it's his
Is
birthday.
that
and Ben's
Wednesday
leaving
or
town.
Tuesday?
No, this is Monday, then Tuesday, then
Got it.
Wednesday. Anyhow, but all of this would
I
have
have
been
soup
great
night on Wednesday.
Oh, can I borrow your rice cooker again?
Not for Wednesday, because I need it
No, but
on
I just
Wednesday.
need it on Tuesday, maybe.
If I get it by Wednesday, I'm
Crap.
good. By Wednesday. You can use it Monday or Tuesday. But
Tuesday,
Wednesday, I
and
need
then give it back. Okay, all right, fine. It's still at my house from the last.
Yeah,
go-round.
so I was going to have to...
Anyway, so my point is, the dinners actually are going to be pretty low-key, but it's the mound of dirty dishes that is taking over my life that is right now the sore spot, because
I remember this phase when I used to do events when I still lived at Mom and Dad's house. Because I would always feel like, whew, did it, finished. And Mom would be like, what about those 40 bins in the basement? I'd be like, I'll handle that later. Mom is a far more diligent, make it happen yesterday person. So,
yeah.
but now I see her point. Now I
No,
see
you
it.
gotta
You
get it
have
done.
to do it right
But
away.
see, I have like 200, it was probably like 200 dinner plates. We did an appetizer plate and a dessert plate, so that's like 400 of those, and then it's all the wine glasses, and then all the serving pieces, and platters, and bowls, and anyway, everything is in a giant heap. It's in a heap. Just crates and everything, but it was fun. It actually went well. So mostly, I'm
thought
gonna
my
have to
best-
just tell
my-
the guests to deal with the. Actually, they were all at the dinner, so they'll all understand. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. I'm sure that will be fine.
I'll be like, pick your way across my threshold.
Yeah, find your way in. Sit on a box of
Once
dirty
you get
dishes.
here, I was gonna try and make that. Well, I don't know what I'm gonna make.
What were you gonna try to make?
What I was thinking of making, the mood that the weather is giving me, is that really great Jamie Oliver stew that is like a. He uses a beef shin. I can't be a party to that, but I use other cuts of meat.
Isn't a shin? Is it with the bone and the
I don't
marrow?
remember.
Probably.
I don't remember, but I just use other beef. But it's a really glorious stew that you put cinnamon sticks and rosemary sprigs in.
Oh, it sounds
and
like
let it.
I forgot about that. Sounds like a
it's so
Spanish short ribs kind of thing.
Yeah,
Those
and
are
it's
really
got
good.
like a lot of tomatoes, and it's
Have
just
orange zest
It's
in it?
really good. No,
I make a Spanish short ribs based off of something we had at a restaurant that has a little bit of cinnamon in it. It's like tomatoes, like the beef short ribs, but I do the country style short ribs, which is really, they're boneless. They're like, I think they're slices of chuck or something. I don't know what they are. They're like some kind of a slow cooking meat that's like in a long, the country pork ones is pork shoulder, and I don't know what it is in beef. But anyways, I put it in a Dutch oven with it's like sauteed onion and grated carrot, and then tomato, and then there's a little bit of cocoa powder in it, and some cinnamon and some orange zest, and then like you put up fresh herbs in it.
This sounds
And
similar,
it
except for
cooks
not
really-
the cocoa and orange.
The orange zest, and then you top it with a little bit of orange zest and like parsley all mixed up together.
That sounds good.
And it's really good.
Yeah,
and
this
it's
one
super
doesn't
good
have
with
that.
you have like polenta and then this.
See,
short,
I do this
so
one
good.
served over the top of smashed potatoes, and the smashed potato recipe you do with like cream cheese and butter and salt and pepper and some of the potato water you don't have to peel the potatoes, so they're like chunky. You use red ones, boil them, and then smash them with potato water and a boatload of butter and cream cheese and salt and pepper. So they're very luscious. But then you put the stew over the top. It's really quite tasty.
Sounds good.
But I don't know when I would do that because I have to teach all morning. So
weird recipe alert. This is something that I got off of the New York Times,
okay.
which are so snobby. Been using their app for years, and it's a great app for free, but they suddenly decided they were worth money and put up a paywall, which is really stupid because they were a great app for free, but I can't bring myself to want to pay them for it. But a recipe that I got off of there was one for like a baked cabbage and sausage thing.
Okay.
And it's so simple, and it is so ridiculously delicious. And it is like a whole, well, I do for our family, 2 heads of green cabbage, sliced thin. And they say you can like blanch it, but I have done it both ways, and it doesn't really matter if you just pack it into a Dutch oven, not blanched. And then calls for sausage, but I use the chicken sausage because it's really
Like links? Or
no,
ground?
like there's like a Serrano's Italian. It's like a hot Italian chicken sausage that's in like a 1 pound thing, and it's not cooked already. It's a raw sausage. You crumble it all across the cabbage, and then layer it, cabbage and sausage, with salt, and dot it with some butter on the top. Put it in the Dutch oven for like 3 hours at 300, and it is ridiculously good. Like the cabbage all tastes like, my kids are crazy for it. If you have it with good bread and like mustard, if you want mustard on the bread, like a grainy mustard.
Weird. What you're telling me is weird.
I don't do the mustard so much because I'm not a huge fan, but like Lucas, no, it's shockingly delicious. Like the cabbage that baked with the sausage that whole time, and it is like the fastest dinner in the universe to make, and make a lot earlier. You know what I mean? Like you're like done. It's in the oven. We did it when like the boys had wrestling. Like I left that in the oven, so when we come home, it's just bread and this hot. It's so good.
Well, it sounds different for sure.
It actually is good.
I mean, I believe
try it.
I believe you. But
That when it cooks, so it's like very juicy because the cabbage and everything merges, but the cabbage like tastes like sausage, and it's really tender, like buttery, like the butter tenderizes it or something. It's really good.
I should give this one a whirl.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting. I tried the one you told us about before with the potatoes and cabbage and sausage, and it was a hit. Everybody liked it.
Sauteed the cabbage on top of the stove.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
was
another
good.
one that you basically didn't have to think of doing.
Yeah, it was
You
great.
just whiz off with
I
it
used
at the last
those
minute.
chorizos and broiled them, and it was good stuff.
Yeah. So, the thing I thought we should talk about, unless I'm jumping the gun, am I?
You talk about it, and we'll see. We'll just see if I feel like participating.
No, it just occurred. Here I go. Timing. So, it just occurred to me that we should talk about this. So, I have 4 daughters and 3 sons.
Yes.
So, there's a lot of opportunities for sibling-based trouble, which you don't really have a lot of that. But, I mean, I still just think it's interesting. So, my 3rd daughter, I have like my 1st and my 4th daughters, really into knitting and fiber artsy things. They all have different varying degrees of interest, but Lena and Blair's like driven to know how the pattern works and what's happening and tell me more about this.
Okay.
So she's the youngest. So one of my girls in the middle said casually one day, I don't really like knitting. Like, I don't like knitting. It's not something I'm into. And it just occurred to me that this is a great thing to talk about, because I told her, I was like, no, come here. You're not allowed to say that. And she's like,
you will like knitting.
No, I told her, I don't actually care. Yeah,
You
commit
cannot be
forever.
a Jankovic unless you like knitting.
What I said was, I bet I know what you meant when you said that. And what you meant is, I don't like it as much as Lena and Blair. Like, I don't actually like it as much as them. And I said, but you're too young to go closing any doors like that. I said, you leave the doors open. So, like, I'm not, like, we did the same thing with one of our kids saying, I'm not good at writing. It was like they had a couple down composition papers. They're like, I'm not any good at writing. And we're like, nope, not allowed to say that. Not allowed to tell yourself that.
Well,
not allowed to.
I just insert, though. I think this is because we have long had a thing, you and I and the broader family, that you really shouldn't pigeonhole your children.
Yes.
And you shouldn't let your children pigeonhole themselves, because it's very easy for them to do it really young and decide. And I'm sure we all have memories of things that we just were too worried to try
or sometimes you heard it, though, you interpreted as a kid something that nobody ever meant that way.
Yeah.
To mean something. And I told her at the time, I said, you know what? I grew up thinking that I was not artistic, that you were the artistic one. But nobody ever said that to me. Nobody ever was saying, it was just that Becca was 4 years older than me and drew for leisure more than I did. Like, you were more compelled to sketch something.
Yeah.
And you were older, so you were way better than I was, because you were 4 years older. So obviously, but at some point, I was like, I'm not good at that. And I didn't do it. And what I told Chloe was that I was like, my word, when I was much older, I realized I probably was far more artistic than I thought I was. And that I wish that I had not wasted that time of thinking I couldn't do it. Because it was like, nobody told, it's not like an important thing that you sketch. I mean, it's not, but at the same time, I had a false impression of my abilities because I was made some little, and then we've all known people like that, where they let their kids be the, like, oh, you're the funny one, and you're the pretty one. You're the pretty one, and this one's the smart one, and that one's the silly one, and I was like, oh my goodness. It's hard
for kids to break out of that if you do that, but on the other hand, all your kids are going to be very different, and there's nothing wrong with noticing their differences. It's just that, like, when you label them, then they really will just live up to that, and especially when you're or they will try to find their own little niche where
they can be
this
their own.
Is the thing that I can do to
I'm actually really
myself.
into I have to have a separate field of work, because we can't all just be in the same same.
And I've seen, like, girls that got really, like, tragically boxed into being athletes, for instance,
or tragically boxed into being, like, into math. Or tragically boxed in it. It just happens. And so what I told
really
Chloe,
can't get out. Like, it's very
Chloe
hard for them to get out.
totally understood this. Like, she was just 100% fine with that. I said, I don't actually care if you don't love knitting. Like, I really don't. Like, but the funny thing was, like, but the thing is, you actually do. You know how to do it. Yeah. You like it. You're interested in it. You just noticed that your younger sister is more whizzed up about reading a pattern than you are. And it was like, I'm not that person. So I must be something else. And so anyways, I'm just going to say that was something that we are fairly aggressive at saying you're not allowed to do that. Like, don't close those doors. Like, you're not going to.
Yeah, because you really are still exploring and trying to figure out what you're good at.
No, and you should have total freedom to come around.
How many kids are in college and they have no idea what they're good at? They're drifting around. They still don't know who they are, what they, so it's absurd to, like, close doors when you're in third grade.
No, and I've told her, I said, who knows, you might want to come back around to doing something, and I don't want you to have to overcome your ideas about who you are first. Like it's fine with me if you don't feel like knitting right now, and it's fine with me if you never come back to really being passionate
don't,
about
like,
knitting.
seal the
But
lid
don't
down.
start saying, don't start telling yourself that's not me. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
And she totally understood it and was like, yeah, that's true. Like, she totally thought that she was just thinking, I'm not like those two.
And I do think, though, sometimes when kids start doing that, they are looking for what is my thing. Like, I'm not that. What am I? You know, like, so.
Well, and I've tried to be, she's the one that I'll let play on the other sewing machine because she likes to try sewing doll clothes and stuff. She has all kinds of interests in other fields. Like, she's, you know what I mean? She's not sitting around not liking to do what other people are doing.
Yeah.
But it's just, it just struck me as something that I think is important. That is not letting your kids, and this is a thing, if you've ever heard of, like, delight-driven homeschooling, or, like, things that's like, we're going to let you choose your own curriculum in life, or, like, we'll find out what your gifting is really early. I hated grammar and English and stuff when I was young, and then I suddenly liked it when we were diagramming sentences.
Yeah.
And then I didn't care. I feel like I went through many phases.
Oh, yeah.
And I came out the other end, I'm actually do right and do that. I like it. It's actually a field that out of all the fields of early elementary, it's the one I'm most involved in currently. But I hated it for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes me very thankful that it wasn't up to my levels of delight, whether or not I kept on doing it.
No.
I would have been
That would have been a poor choice for all of us if we had just gone to drift down whatever we wanted to do.
Right? Because you think we weren't actually very wise.
No, we also had no idea
Anything.
really what we did. It's just
No, and that's the thing that I think is important, to just keep the guardrails on in those situations until, you know.
Yeah, it's like, no, you are going to just...
No, you're not going to specialize and become just a musician at this age. You know what I mean? Like, no.
Although, I have to say, there are some kids... Well, like, I guess the thing is, college kids are really in this moment where they are trying to pick, like, what am I going to do? And I would just ask everyone to think to yourself, am I working in the field that I got a degree in? And most people are not. Or it might be like, sure, you're in the same field, but now you're in management. You're not in, like, where it's like,
you're not doing what you thought you'd be doing.
Yeah. And why did I bring that up? I cannot remember. There was a reason, but it's kind of
You were
late at
talking
night.
about choosing your fields to work in.
Yeah, but
This still got nothing.
there was something. We'll have to rewind. You know what? Well, I'll listen to it later when I'm trying to think, what were we saying? And, like, I need a summary. What did we talk about? And then it will come back to me, because I'll have that chain of thought leading up to it.
Okay.
No, I got distracted thinking about something else. I took one turn too far in the detour.
Oh my goodness.
That's really funny. No, but it is true. Like, while I'm on that subject, it is true that we, many people are not actually working in the field they got a degree in, but that doesn't mean it was not a very useful time, right? You learned so much stuff in your college years that prepared you for whatever you're doing.
Right.
Not necessarily in the
Directly.
qualified you directly. So all the stuff that you are learning and making your kids learn and everything else,
It doesn't matter if
it's
you don't
forming
see
them.
it being really something you're going to use every day later.
Right. And I just think there
Like,
are...
how much do I use Latin? Not much. Well, probably more than some things, but not much.
No, there's a whole... you do, actually.
I'm trying to think of something that I don't use that I had to do in elementary school.
Would you like to know? I did write a book about this, Rachel.
Oh, you did. Well, I
did.
know how I use Latin sometimes.
No, it's not that.
But
Let me
I was
tell you-
never
do you want me
good
to
at
tell
Latin.
You? Let me
It
tell
was
you
your-
something, though. This is what I said.
Teach
in
me.
my book. Yeah.
Teach me.
Teach me. I will
Hey,
teach
classical
you.
thee.
I will teach you my
classical
ways.
me.
No, here's the thing. If you have to go through the exercise of learning another language, it is organizing your mind in a particular way. And so, if you have, like, forgotten all the Latin you ever learned, it does not mean that it did not form you into having the kind of mind that you have. So, for instance, if, like, this was an example I used in my book. You know how there's that whole thing about Eskimos having
All the
however
words for
many
snow.
thousand words for snow? And
I thought it was like 27.
yeah, there's a lot. And if you think about how many words we have for snow, it's like there's like slush, corn snow, hail, powder.
Freezing rain. Powder. What's the big snowball kind? Probably.
Yeah, see, we don't have a word. But the thing is like, you know how sometimes it comes down in those big, wet, like,
big
glops,
clods.
and sometimes it's those tiny, like, really cold ones.
Yeah.
And then
The
sometimes...
like glitter snow. That's
sometimes,
crazy.
yeah, it glitters. The whole air glitters. And then sometimes it's like, you know, and
Yeah.
so now think of if you were an Eskimo and you had a name for that particular kind of snow, it actually makes you see the snow more. You know what I mean? Like you can't just say, oh, look, it's snowing. You'd have to be more precise. You'd have to like
Sure.
hang it on a peg in your mind.
Yeah.
And as soon as you learn the word for it, you actually see it differently after
Sure.
that. So when you learn another language, you've actually just organized your mind one more step. So the example Ben always uses, and it's funny, is imagine if you did not know what deja vu was, but you experienced it. Like you didn't have a word for it. It just happened to you. Like you would be going along and then it's weird and then it's not. And then it's like, what was that? And it would be very unsettling. But as soon as somebody tells you, oh yeah, that's deja vu, then you feel better about it because you have a word. Like you have a thing to hang it, there's a hook to hang it on in your mind.
Yeah, sure.
And now when you experience it, now you have a word for it and it settles it in a way. Or like there's the German word, friend shaman.
Yes, feeling
Which is
embarrassed
when
for
you're,
others.
Yes, when you're like painfully embarrassed on behalf of someone else who isn't embarrassed, but should be.
This is a word for talent shows.
Talent shows. There he is up there with his squeaky trumpet and not being embarrassed.
You just can't even. You
and
can't
you're
make
like
it through a live.
dying in the
Actually,
in the
probably
stands.
most handbell concerts.
Or frequent feelings that teenagers have about their mom singing loudly to the radio.
And the
or
mom who
something.
just doesn't care. Yeah.
And the kid is like dying of vicarious embarrassment. Well, the Germans have the word for it, which is friend shaman. And as soon as, like, we've all experienced that feeling, but when we don't have a name for it. But as soon as you have a name for it, then the feeling itself becomes more crystallized, and you recognize it when it happens.
And then you can identify it and move on from it.
And so the thing is that, like, you, by taking Latin all the years that you took it, you are able to distinguish between I was running versus I ran. Right? There's a nuance there.
Right.
And by having to jump back and forth between two languages and learn it, you can say continuous action in the past versus completed action in the past.
Right.
And then you speak in English more precisely because your mind has actually been shaped and formed by the study of Latin. I'm saying is that you might not have to dig out your vocab all that often, but you have had a sort of a sharper edge put on
But
your...
I've always felt that I was personally a failure at the languages. That's what I mean, as that I didn't excel at the Latin. Both with Latin and Greek, I got to where I could translate it, but could not explain to people why. I remember in my NSA Greek final, translating a section and having my teacher, my instructor Schwant at the time, was like, very good. Like, now tell me, why did you translate this that way? And me being like, yeah, because it felt like the thing to do when I saw it. I just intuited it.
Yeah.
But my point was not that I know that Latin is valuable. And we got on a major rabbit trail because I was trying to say that there's things that I didn't use that I don't currently use in elementary school that were still very good and formative. In my life.
Yeah, and I'm saying...
And I want to connect this to something completely unrelated, though. Can I do that? Do you mind?
Probably not.
Okay.
Because when I think of whatever I was going to say, I'm just going to I'm going to launch that.
Okay, it's the thing that mothers experience, that sorrow of forgetting your babies.
Oh,
it's that feeling of, like, I don't even remember you when you were 2. Like, I mean, like, you would be very familiar, but you changed and I don't know. You know, like, and that moment when you see it, where you just want to soak it up forever. Like, I hope I never forget this.
Yeah.
But you already are forgetting it. Like, it's already getting lost.
Yeah.
We had this moment Moses just turned 2, and at the Sabbath dinner where we had his little birthday party, Grandpa Jim, so my grandpa, his great grandpa prayed, and he prayed for him, just a wonderful prayer that he would, it was wonderful. I can't even remember what he said, but it was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then when he finished, Moses yelled, "Amen." And it was like this moment where you're like the sweetness of this, except for that I've already forgotten what it was that Grandpa, you're already like, it's just fleeting, it's just leaving, or you find your baby clothes or whatever. And I was just thinking about that, how you didn't lose that. Like, that was part of a story that it shaped how you feel about this person today. But just because you don't know how you got shaped does not mean that you lost it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it means that this is, plus I always think that that's part of just the having eternity in your heart. Yeah. That this is the longing for eternity is like, how can I not hang on to any of this?
That's just the struggle with finitude, because it's like we can't grasp it all.
No, and we can't even think about it, or we get sick. Like, we get so sad and depressed.
It's like we would love to transcend time, but we cannot. We are stuck inside.
And we're like, oh no, we're just getting old and we're losing track of everything, and it's not working. I was noticing
that verse when Jacob goes to Egypt, when Joseph, they found out, and he
like,
goes,
my days are short.
Pharaoh says, how old are you? Or somebody's like, 130 years have been the days of my pilgrimage. Short and evil have been the days of my pilgrimage.
It's like, it's been hardly a minute, and it's been awful.
And I was saying this to one of my teens the other night. He was like, I'm not getting everything done, that I just feel like I'm behind on all the things I should have started by now.
There's so many things behind that you're like, just
we're in the teens right now.
Cry me a
and I was
river.
like, let me read you a verse from Jacob. I was like, you're experiencing humanity.
He has a piece to speak to you. So I am.
Welcome to human.
Speaking of that, this is a moment. This is another moment bordering on my when Rachel cannot rely on her intuition, but is tempted to anyways.
Okay. Are you about to freewheel it a little bit?
Yeah, majorly. Okay. I am not a Levitical scholar.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
you're gonna freewheel it.
I'm majorly gonna freewheel it.
Levitical speculation.
I'm not a Hebrew scholar nor a Levitical scholar, but
nor
we just
the son of a Levitical scholar.
nor related to one at all. But we just read Leviticus.
Well, we're related to people who probably know more about it than we do.
We should call them up. Actually, I did. I did call Dad up to be like, here's what I feel. Is this something that you think is accurate? Because So there's this discussion, because we all read Leviticus together in the Bible Reading Challenge. And Leviticus is full of shenanigans. And I will say that this is the thing that has been so fun about the Bible Reading Challenge to me, is that I could have read Leviticus by myself and not wrestled with a solitary aspect of it. Like, I could have just breezed through it. But when other people express
concern,
well, not even necessarily concern, comment, like when they're like, oh, don't you just see this? And you're like, no, I don't. But then I have to think about it, because it's, and then you end up reflecting on the scripture way more than you would have, because you're actually having to think about, why do I feel that way about this?
Right.
Well, it made me think about these people, because the whole issue of you being unclean, like you have a baby and then you're unclean for a while, and then you're unclean whenever you're on your period. You're unclean there's a lot less privacy these days in Leviticus. The announcements that you would have been needing to share with the community about your uncleanness seem a little like an overshare. But the point is, so much uncleanness that people were kind of saying, it's not as bad as that, because it wasn't that big a deal to be unclean. Because it was so common, it was not that big of a deal.
Okay.
Well, then this has me just thinking, I don't think so. I think it was a big deal to be unclean.
Okay.
Tell me, don't you think it was a big deal to be unclean?
Yes.
Because I'm thinking the whole point was that you were a people called out and set apart. Like, the whole point was that, and that God was dwelling among them with the tabernacle.
All of the laws between, everything is about clean, unclean, and it's all about horizontal separations. This is clean, this is not clean, which was all to point to the vertical separation, which is
clean and not
clean. We
are
unclean. Like the horizontal distinctions was meant to reinforce the vertical.
Right, but the whole thing that I think I was saying is people were, and then it reminded me of like Galatians. Okay, so Galatians, Dad mentioned this, and I thought, yes, that's what I mean. In Galatians, Paul's saying, why are you trying to get the poor Gentiles to follow this law? And he says, like, when neither us nor our fathers could bear it. Like, we could not survive with this level of, and I think everybody thinks, like, well, no, that'd be unreasonable if the woman who was on her period was not in the home. Like, it would be unreasonable to say you can't touch her, or you shouldn't be near her, or she can't prepare food. That'd be unreasonable, so it can't have been that way. But I think that this was their whole life. Like, at least when they were in the wilderness, they were getting manna every day still. Do you know what I mean? Like, they weren't exactly building cities and doing all the agriculture. They were like, the whole thing that was happening was the tabernacle, clean, you know, like trying to be clean, trying to be set apart, trying to be, and I'm sure there were people that were not
I just have to
desiring holiness, but if you were desiring to be holy, and you know all the people saw that, the first sacrifice, God consuming it in a fire, and that they all, says that everybody shouted and fell on their faces. Like, you know, they were aware of active presence of God. So you would think you wouldn't be too cash pants about it.
Right.
I don't know. Plus,
they continued to be
the
cash
Levitical
pants.
moment. Yeah, right. That the moment when your house was declared free of leprosy. Which is probably like a mold or something, right? Because it talks about the leprosy being in the warp and the weft of the woof. The warp and the woof of the cloth.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but dipping a live bird in the blood of the bird you sacrificed and carrying that through the house with like cedar branches and stuff. And I was thinking, that is a scene right there. like, and to do that to make it clean.
Yeah.
Think of a freaking out bird covered in
Well,
blood.
I always think of the amount of blood at the tabernacle and the sounds and the, you know, like the experience of having your impression of holiness is like a slaughterhouse, but with a great deal of ceremony and so forth. But,
and it's always like putting the blood on your ear and your big toe.
But
and
you think about like when David in the Psalms talks about like going to worship God and loving going to the house of God
and saying that the statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart.
No, but I just mean like all the smells and the sounds and everything. That's what holiness smelled like, felt like, sounded like to David. And when he talks about delighting to go to the house of God and rejoicing in the worship of God, it's like this was a very different,
not the same thing. One of my friends pointed out, like, reading Leviticus just makes me think, like, why do we think God doesn't really care what we do in worship? Run that by me one more time. Because, like, if we know that it's different with the new high priest, but it's not a different God or a different level. Like, he doesn't care about holiness now.
Well, you know,
that's the thing that's so ridiculous.
Ben was remembering the other day when he was just becoming reformed and struggling with all the trying to make it work, and he felt like he was going to have to bite the bullet and become reformed. So he went to a different pastor who was
trouble
not,
cometh,
and said, like, I just need some help with this. And the guy was like, oh yeah. And he said, yeah, I've studied it. It's all good. So Ben said, right, well, help me with this. And he opens his Bible to Romans 9, hands it across to the guy, and he's like, help me with this one. And the guy looks at it for a minute and he goes, oh yeah, we didn't talk about this. And he shuts the Bible, pushes it back to Ben, and goes, but do you really think God would say And Ben was like,
evaluate your body language. Evaluate it.
Just the action of closing the Bible, pushing it back to him and saying, but do you really think that God... And Ben was like,
Total
that's
closure.
the moment where I knew I'm done. I'm hosed. Like, if this is the best he can offer, I can't.
And
Like,
Luke did the same thing. He had the same series of meetings about becoming post-mill where he was like, here's what I thought. I read this. You know, like, he was like, what do you have to say? And the pastor was just like, can't help you there. And he was like, well, great. Like, I came to you thinking that you would have more of a defense against
but
this
I
than
just
I
mean
would.
the whole, like, do you really think
Oh
God
my God. It's
cares
like,
what we
I'm
do
just
in
quoting
worship?
the serpent at you.
Do you really
Do you
think
think
he
he
would mind?
said that? I doubt it.
I don't know
I
if he
doubt
would
he did.
mind. Pretty
Oh
sure.
my word,
Let's
it's so
just
bad.
close this
That
book.
it is really funny. But the big thing that's so awesome was we read Leviticus alongside of Hebrews. In Hebrews, it's so beautiful. I said this on the
There's
Facebook
a lot
page.
of amazing pairing.
I said this on the Facebook page, but I really think that Leviticus is like the bones of grace in Hebrews is like the stock that happened after they got boiled for a long time, because it's the same story and it's the same thing, but now it's all just grace. Like now it's like nourishing, encouraging grace, and then you look at it and you're like, what? Like, how could I eat this pile of bones? You know what I mean? Like, how could we be nourished by this?
I have to say, though, this is not nearly as spiritual of an observation as yours, but as I'm reading it, I keep thinking, like, I just wish I could get a snapshot of what the culture would have been sort of like, because you have, like, all right.
In Leviticus or in
Well,
Hebrews?
no, just, like, a few steps out from it, because you've got all the badger skins covering the tabernacle.
That
or
were
whatever.
dyed red.
Yeah, dyed red, and goat skins and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so somewhere, somehow, you have to have division of labor necessitates. You have the guys who are out catching the badgers.
Mm-hmm. And like, someone's making dye.
You're on the badger detail. And you're gonna
make the brass couplings that
the
are gonna link
couplings
together
and
the panels of the
You're gonna get the selvages,
but then
hitched up with the brass rings.
But the selvages are so fancy, and you think who was running the looming operations? Obviously, I'm
with the
interested.
Gold wire, and you're like, this is some serious
making gold into something that can be woven is an activity of its own.
Covering everything in gold. I'm like, there must have been incredible, like,
I was wondering,
like shops in the wilderness. Like, they had to have had shops.
Yes. Like forges
and people like weaving, like setting up looms.
But you wonder how much of what somebody commented this in the group, I thought it was kind of rad, how much of the stuff that they brought out of Egypt was their work that they would have been doing as slaves. Like, that surely it was skilled labor from Egypt, because they were slaves. So they would have, but they bring, because like the weaving, they had to, can you imagine crossing through the Red Sea with Pharaoh and all his army on your heels, hauling your anvil?
Or maybe you had to start over when you got to the other side. But the thing is, like, this is the other one that gets me.
But how could you make an anvil in the wilderness?
You're reading, like, in the book of Esther about the crazy feasts that Xerxes is giving, and I'm like, who is the guy running the kitchens?
No,
for those
Wouldn't
people?
It be good to know? I want to know who was running this beauty treatment camp that was so intense, because it's like, we're gonna have 3 months on myrrh or whatever. What was it? 3 months.
Who's the lady, the like famous editor of Vogue, who was the real dragon? You know who I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like, did you have that? The equivalent of that in Babylon?
Well,
no, it was not in Babylon, was it?
It has to have been, because wasn't it? Wait, was it myrrh that they had?
There were a couple
3 months
things.
at something. Yeah, but like, how many ways do you do myrrh?
But I'm like, the thing about the guy who has to get 4,000 oxen hot on the table at the same time.
You wonder
who's that guy?
No, and it would be like, the queen would just be like, I'm going to throw a banquet now.
Yeah.
And you're like, but who's really doing it?
Yeah. And
Give me the word on those people.
Think about, what if you were like the guy who was in charge of the plant nurseries in ancient Babylon for the hanging gardens? Who's the gardening expert? Somebody was starting the plants and was taking care of them and was being the,
Wasn't it in Babylon?
Who's the guy feeding the lions?
Is
in
it
the
in
lion's
Herodotus?
Den?
Is it? Yeah, right. In
there was somebody taking care of
that
them.
poor guy that died stoking the furnace so hot. That was a rough day at work. So is it in Herodotus, that the terrible bit about the people, all the women had to take their turn at being the temple prostitutes.
The prostitutes.
This is like one of the worst socially awkward things you can imagine ever.
Well,
but it was in Babylon, right? That he's talking about it. He's like, on the steps of the temple, it was a requirement of the religion. Every woman had to take a turn at being a temple prostitute.
And you had to stay there
until you got hired. And so then it was just like a little one-off comment about the women that were so sad. It's like the worst women who were stuck on the temple steps for years. Years, every day, going to the temple to check if you'd be hired as a temple prostitute yet again, and getting passed over. And you think, no part of that is okay. Like, the sadness of having to go prostitute yourself.
Can I just say,
but at that time,
the feminists are so provincial. Because it's like, do
Isn't
you
that
have
the
any
truth?
idea about how
I feel
women have
put
had to
upon-
live?
I feel put upon that men don't have to sit down to go to the bathroom. Sort of that's
Hashtag
why.
me too.
Hashtag
me too.
Hashtag everybody fuss together now.
Somebody winked at me today.
Hashtag. And the thing is so bad about that, we were joking about my word. If men started some kind of a hashtag for any time a woman
saw a girl
afflicted
being
you with her
inappropriately
immodesty. You're like,
Hashtag me too.
hashtag why the boobs? Hashtag why have you done this to me?
Cleavage alert, me too.
Hashtag they're the worst.
Women are the worst.
Women always do this kind of thing.
I was propositioned once. Women are the worst.
Somebody told me once our daughters are facing, this has been, she's like, our daughters are facing pressure every day to have sex. And I was like,
Not my daughters.
And I was like, no, this is when I was in high school. No, I was in college. But I was like, nope.
They shouldn't be.
I was like, they might be if they're in all the places they ought not to be. And I was
where
like,
do you
but
have
you
them?
have to have them in a situation where they have a boyfriend
like,
who's
have-
trying to have sex with them
have
and
you-
friends who think that's a good idea.
But it's like, have
In
you
an
been letting them
environment.
go hang out on the temple steps?
Yeah, what part of this are you? Yeah,
Is
are
that
they
where you're
waiting for
sending
someone
them?
to pay them for temple prostitution? Because I can see how that would be pressure. Like, if they're sitting there and someone tossed the coin into their lap, sure, maybe they feel like they have
Yeah.
to go. But why the temple at all? Why are
Yeah,
we there?
yeah.
Anyways, my comment at this time to this woman was like, no, I'm sorry. I was like, I can say I was still unmarried at this time. I was in college, and I was like, I can safely say that I have never in my whole life been pressured to have
But
sex. And I said, but that's because a lewd guy on the street is not pressure.
No.
Like, you're talking about people closest to you are, you know what I mean? Like, that there's some kind of a consequence of you not, you know,
yeah.
that you're like afraid of he'll break up with me if I don't do this, and somehow that would ruin my
But
life.
see, both of us we have all been there where there's a lewd guy. I was just there with the lewd guy in the Walmart parking lot not long ago who sidled up behind me and became very
overly helpful with the dog
anatomical,
food.
anatomical and inappropriate is what he was.
And unflattering in
well,
his way because of who he was.
He was trying to be complimentary, but it did not. I was so taken aback. I was talking to Rachel on the phone at the moment, and he came
I got
up,
to be there for
and
it.
he came up to me, and I was holding a giant bag of dog food. And so I had my phone pinned to my shoulder with my ear.
And
then-
so good.
And he sort of sidles up right there in your blind spot, kind of. And I turned around and he said something, and I was like, what? And he said it again, and I was like, oh my word. And I turned around just like, what? And then I'm like, Rachel, oh my gosh. But anyway, the point is that when you have that kind of
But that's
moment,
it's not pressure.
when you have that moment, it's like, do we blame all of mankind? Because if we do, then the men could just as easily blame all the women for anyone who is flaunting themselves.
Right. Like, how dare you? How dare you say this one sample is the trend of mankind?
I mean, but the thing is yeah, it's true. A lot of men are pigs. That's true.
I have to say, this connects to
We've all
something
seen it.
something that we probably don't need to talk
Look
about.
how long we've been talking, Rach. This is like a world record. We've got to shut up.
I'll save that reflection that I was
Right as
about
we
to
were-
have for
we're
next
like-
time.
I know.
Should our tip be to stop
Talking?
podcasting before it gets to 50 minutes?
Before Christmas, we've got to
Oh!
stop.
Yeah, before Christmas, everybody
should
stop.
stop
Yeah,
podcasting.
I'll give a quick Christmas tip because
Okay,
I'm
do
committed
it.
to doing
Do
this.
it. Yeah, do it.
One hot tip I have about Christmas is to go ahead and make a list of all of the things. This helps me. Maybe other people don't have my conscience problems, but
Okay.
I make a list of all of the Christmas treats and things that we enjoy.
Okay.
Cookie wise, like baking, cookie, fun things at home.
Yep.
And then we take a family vote on the ones that are most important to us.
Okay.
Because it struck me once that in order to have a fun tradition, you don't have to do it every year. It's actually okay to do a gingerbread house every couple years,
Yeah.
and everybody still loves it and thinks it's fun. And it's still a tradition, even if it didn't,
You
even
know,
if it's not like every single December.
I have never gotten the gingerbread house because every time I've tried, guess what I've...
Oh, I know what happens.
Guess where
You're like,
I've...
let's make a Victorian palace.
I know. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do, like, glass...
No, it's got to be
windows,
3 stories. 3 stories with sugar glass.
Amber, sugar, that is...
So,
and then, surprisingly, it doesn't all come together because it takes too long.
I still remember when Mom made a gingerbread house with us on East Street, and she closed a dinner glass onto the inside of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because she's trying to prop it up. And that we were, like, blown away by the chaos of having a dinner glass stuck inside of the gingerbread house. And I still remember it being like, it's lost inside of there. Like, I don't know what we thought. It was like a permanent structure. But anyways, my point is, by having everyone in the family vote on the things that they're most excited to have, we don't have to repeat the things that we love every single year, because like one year I make ninja bread boys. They're the little ninja gingerbread boys, which the kids think are really funny. But every 3 years is plenty often enough for ninja bread boys to make an appearance. So I'm saying it was a real relief to me when I quit thinking that I had to do like touch every base every year. Like no, we gotta have it be really fun and just do the things we care about.
Good.
Yeah. Do you have a tip? Do you have a 30-second Christmas tip?
I've got no tips.
She's got no tips.
What is... This is
Well,
the second time I pulled a blank tonight.
Just tell me one of your Christmas treats.
One.
Do you always do sugar cookies?
Treats. No, I don't always do sugar.
We always make caramel. My kids are they always care about the caramel, and we make it for people at Luke's work.
One of the weird things that we thought was really odd in England at first, and then I grew to love extremely, was the mince pies. And that's surprising because I really don't like raisins featured in baked goods ever. And this is essentially a raisin pie, which is like a horrible, horrible thought. But they are really...
I don't know, remember Grandma's matrimonial cake?
Oh, I do remember that. But the thing is the mince pies were glorious. Like, people would give them to us everywhere we went with hot spiced wine. Like, even at the equivalent of the little dollar store, it was called the pound store, that we would take the kids to do the Christmas shopping for each other, which was hilarious.
Oh, that's the tip.
And there would be like a little card table set up in the back corner with mince pies and mulled wine. They were giving out mulled wine at the dollar store. Anyway, and at church and at just everything, they would give them to us. Starbucks had mince pies, and I just got so fond of them, and now that is kind of like one of those tastes of Christmas that I try to pull those out, but honestly, it never quite works here as well. And it's like, I feel like there's something about
the weather and the place.
I just remember the first time I ever had it. It was at a beautiful little carol service in this little stone church.
Compete with that.
No, it was like stone church. I don't even think it had electricity. It was like it was candlelit and it was cold and it was beautiful. And then they brought out the mulled wine and mince pies afterwards.
I don't see us competing with that.
Somehow it's just not quite the same. But anyway, that's one of those random Christmas
The dollar
treats.
store, you reminded me of that. What we do and you did is we take our kids to shop for each other at the dollar store.
It is.
Luke and I look at each other and we're like, "You've got to be kidding me that we are spending $67 on things at the dollar store."
But it's so
But
funny.
it is worth every second of it because we get all the kids can take their own little basket and then they hang their coat over the basket. And then we say, "Go shop for your siblings."
Yes.
And they shop for us and for their siblings all in their baskets. And then they bring them up and we check them out and bag them separately and they take them. And they get to pick out their own wrapping paper at the dollar store also. And oh my word, the delight they get out of giving and receiving the worst dollar store gifts of all time.
It is so funny.
Is so worth it. And Shadrach one year, like a couple years ago, bought like he wanted like 20 of these little tiny footballs that were like, and he had this huge basket full of them, and he was like, "This one's for," like he was gifting like people at church. He had like a full gift strategy for these footballs. He was like, "I'm getting one for Nana, one for Papa, gonna have one for," like he had a real dream. So Luke was like, "We're buying them. He needs to give these." So he was like handing out footballs to random people, but he wrapped them like wadded them up in Christmas paper and delivered them to everyone. It was so fun.
I love it. Well, we used to do the dollar store run, but it was a thing that Ben would do with them. He would take them, and it was the hilarious outing. And
it's outrageous.
I would stay home and do a bunch of wrapping while he was on this annual expedition. So we would do the pound store in England and the dollar store here. Well, then now the kids are old enough that they want to get each other like actual gifts.
Something nice.
So then there was a stretch of years where Ben would take them to the mall. We've spoken of our mall before about the great opportunities that
there's Bed Bath and Beyond Human Endurance.
So what
and
they
not
would
much
do
else.
is they would take turns going off to shop, and Ben with the whoever else was.
Who was being shopped
They
for?
they would go sit in the massage chairs in Bed Bath and Beyond, and I am humiliated that they sit in the massage chairs. I can't be a part of it.
Oh, that's funny.
But they would go sit there and then text pictures to me of them in the massage chairs, while the others, like whoever was being shopped for, would sit there, and then they would. Anyway, it's very funny. But all those little fun Christmas traditions that make the kids able to enjoy the giving. Yeah.
And one thing we did with Shad early on is, you know, those Bob's, the soft peppermints, the big soft peppermints. When he was really little, we buy the big tub of those.
Yeah.
I still do it just for him, which is funny, but a big tub of those soft peppermints.
Yeah.
And he takes them to the Christmas Eve service and hands them out to everyone. Like, he goes on a tour saying Merry Christmas and offering
really
those to
cute.
people. But it was a random thing of, like, I think we did that a year when he was kind of, I mean, he was like 3 or something, but he was probably kind of obsessing about what he was going to get out of Christmas.
Oh, sure.
And we were like, no, we're going to change the tune. You're going to be the person who's going around handing stuff out and saying Merry Christmas. And, you know, so he does that. Now it's like every year he's like, where's my peppermints?
That's really cute.
And I love it. That kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Reckless expenditures at the dollar store, worth every bit of it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's
all right. We made it to 55, and
this is way too long. Don't
we've
push the button.
surpassed-
Till you have to wait till we actually say. She's going to cut us off mid-word. Ready?
do you
Let's say goodbye.
Do you want to take it to a full hour,
No,
Bex?
let's just say goodbye, and then you can push the button.
Goodbye. Good night.
Goodbye.
Talk to you next week. Bye.
New St. Andrews College thanks you for listening.